Good evening, Cormac, and good evening, Senator Ahern. So at our conference here in the Sleep Russell Hotel in Cavan, we are discussing the current challenges facing our sector. So while last year was a good trading year for hotels, and tourism performance was good, it wasn't consistent across the country. Demand from the USA was strong, but visitor numbers from mainland Europe and Britain were less robust.
So you're saying outlook is gloomy as well as we approach peak tourist season?
Yeah, we're facing a combination of factors. So our industry is facing ongoing uncertainty around rising business costs on top of the already very high cost of doing business in Ireland. And there's also concern about the outlook for key tourism markets, and the economies across Europe are, showing significant challenges around their growth as well. So,
what do you mean about uncertainty, Tim? What do you mean about uncertainty around high business costs?
Okay, so our members are indicating that they would expect costs of doing business to increase over 8% in the coming year. And as we know, inflation is expected to settle down this year to about 3%. So what that basically says to members is that the cost of doing business is running ahead of the general economy.
What costs in particular?
Everything to do from the cost of purchasing food, the cost of energy, the cost of every aspect of running the business.
Okay. Garrett Ahern, can you help?
Good evening, Cormac. Good evening, Tim, and to your listeners as well, Cormac. Look, government have always been here to help the hospitality sector when needed. That's what we did during COVID to protect jobs and protect the industry, and that's what we'll do again if it's required.
How?
I suppose what we have done. Well, I suppose what we have done in the recent months is we've set up a new grant support scheme for the cost of business. It's a 257 million scheme, which essentially means that everyone who pays rates for 2023, they get half of those back by the end of March, and that's to help those businesses at the start of the year. The other thing we did recently as well is Minister Michael McGrath put in a 0% interest rate on the tax debt warehousing. And that's important because there's over 5,000 businesses in the accommodation and food sector that availed of that during COVID.
Yeah.
Now, about 3,000
the problem is, Garrett,
about 5,000 or less, but it protects them.
They know all of that. They're looking for more help. What else can you do?
Well, they are. And look, they talk about VAT and reducing VAT. And I can see and understand why they asked that. But you have to remember, when you make a request like that, that request costs 764 million to implement. Now, if we reduced VAT for just food-led businesses, that's more reasonable because it costs about 500 million to do. But look, we do recognise that there are challenges there for the hotel sector, for the hospitality sector. The minimum wage increase, the sick pay legislation came through, auto enrolment. All of these are good and positive things and things that are required for people and for people who work in that sector. But they've all come quite quickly. And it's a challenge for the industry. And we recognise that. And that's why Minister Coveney and Minister Richmond are going to the Department of Finance to give recommendations on what they think the sector needs.
Let me bring Tim back in. Is that reassuring, Tim?
Okay, well, we believe that 9% VAT rate is the right rate for Irish tourism businesses, and it's in line with our European competitors. So I guess that what we could say is that the increase to 30.5% has hit tourism businesses right across the board, including hotels and guest houses, and particularly those that are focusing on food services. So while we believe that 9% VAT rate is the right rate for all tourism, there is obviously a very strong case for government to reconsider its blanket increase, given the shocking impact on the food businesses.
And if they don't? And if they don't?
Well, I think we are already seeing the impact out there. And then again, I guess the other point I would like to make is that from a business and a consumer perspective, the VAT is a consumer tax. And when the government indicates that it costs them when they reduce it to 9%, basically what they're saying is that we're taking more money from the consumers than from the businesses that are trying to survive.
Garrett.
Yeah, look, like most European countries, their VAT rate is around about 12%. In the UK, it's 20%. So it's a lot higher than it is in Ireland. Look, I often say that for the food-led sector, for restaurants, pubs, cafes, particularly outside, I think there's very good justifiable reason reducing the VAT. It's very hard to argue to reduce it for 9% for hotels, particularly hotels in Dublin. In my view, I don't think they've done themselves favours over the last number of years, increasing pricing at weekends, being opportunistic. I think in the long run, that hasn't been beneficial for the hotel sector.
Well, there's your answer, Tim.
And that's why in the long run, I think we need to look at a way of splitting the VAT rate between food-led businesses.
Well, there's your answer on the VAT rate, Tim. Opportunistic pricing on weekends and other times.
Okay, well, I guess what we're talking about here is the difference between accommodation and food services. So we would like the government to look at the food services aspect of it. But I think in relation to Dublin, last year Dublin had more compression nights than competitor cities, and that's when occupancy is over 90%. And Dublin struggled to facilitate the demands on nights when the city was hosting big events. So what we look at then is, what does that mean? So the average hotel room rate for last year was similar to Amsterdam and Edinburgh and was not an outlier in its competitor set, despite the fact that we have a major problem with all these compression nights.
But basically, to paraphrase Garrett, and Garrett can jump in if you like and correct me, the Senator is saying that you're profiteering, you're opportunistically raising prices at weekends when you don't really have to, Tim.
Okay, so Ireland is not a low-cost economy. Our industry focuses on quality and exceeding customer expectations while providing the best value for money possible. So when we have, on the one hand, a very, very high cost of doing business, we have, on the other hand, a dynamic pricing model, which hotels and other industries like airlines use as well, there has to be some kind of a situation where there's a profit. Now, there's no apology for profit. And then when it comes to individual situations of individual nights where there is no availability, we hear time and time again about the rooms that don't exist and that are priced a little bit higher than would normally be.
Well, is that not fair enough? Am I really listening to a Fine Gael senator cribbing about a business making a profit, Garrett?
No, not at all. Absolutely not.
What are you talking about? Opportunistic price rising?
Businesses need to make a profit, and businesses employ a lot of people.
What are you talking about then when you're cribbing about price rises?
Well, you can't say. Like anyone would know hotel prices are different abroad than they are in Ireland. That's why we have people who go to concerts that are on in Dublin, but they choose to go abroad to go to the concert because it's actually cheaper.
What do you mean? So hang on a second. What do you mean when you say hotel prices are different abroad? Are you saying they don't opportunistically increase prices abroad in hotels? No,
not to the same extent as what happens, particularly in Dublin. So if you go to stay a night in Dublin this Friday night, for example, a very well-known hotel, I won't name it, in Dublin, would be about €160 tonight. On the Friday night of the Taylor Swift concert, it's over €500.
Okay, and where is your research, Garrett?
Over hotel.
Yeah. Hang on, where is your research to say that doesn't happen in London or Hamburg or Paris?
Well, it's just cheaper. It's like if you went for say the weekend of the Bruce Springsteen concert in Ireland, if you went to the Bruce Springsteen concert in Italy and flew from Cork to Bergamo and stayed in Milan for the concert, it's cheaper than actually staying in Dublin for the night for the concert. And that's just a fact. Now, not many people do it, but it is actually cheaper to do that. So my point being is we want to support the sector. It's important we support the sector, but we need buy-in as well. And my worry is what happens with these hotels, and it is a small minority, it impacts on the reputation of the wider hotel community across the country. And that's what needs to be changed.
Tim, answer that.
Okay, so let's just say that in terms of the real figures, Dublin is consistently one of the highest, or has the highest occupancy across Europe. The big challenge that we face in Dublin is that we have about 26,000 registered hotel bedrooms. There are 80,000 people coming to concerts in Croke Park. There isn't enough hotel bedrooms in Ireland to cover that type of event. And that's the reality of it. So you go to London, there's 150,000 bedrooms. When they have 80,000 in Wembley or someplace else, it doesn't impact on the city. So there's a capacity issue, and we're delighted, and we do everything we possibly can to work with event organisers to do the best we can to provide capacity when it's
But
required.
you can't deny there's a price issue as well in terms of Irish hotels. Seriously, Peter in Cork texts the programme to say, oh my God, he says, the hospitality sector can't be serious. Hotel prices are through the roof and actually driving inflation. Give us a break, he says.
I guess that what we would always say to anybody when they're planning to travel to any destination is to shop around, look at the hotel's own websites and find the value that's out there. There is a lot of media hype around sometimes last available rates. And just think about it, they're the rates that are available when the city is full.
How do you shop around, Tim, if the example that Garrett gave is correct, that a hotel room goes from €160 to €500 for a Taylor Swift concert? How do you shop around there?
My guess is that there will be very few rooms left at that price. And
So it's okay to inflate the price that much, is that it?
What we're saying is it's dynamic pricing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of attention paid to last available rates. And the reality is that when we look at the round and we look at the average room rates for Dublin, we find that they compare favourably with their competitor sets right across Europe.
Yeah, I've heard dynamic pricing. I've heard dynamic pricing mentioned before. Hang on a second. I need to ask this question because I have heard in debates like this, Tim, by hoteliers, dynamic pricing, that phrase mentioned before, and it's a version of supply and demand. But another version of it could be that once you have them over a barrel, you can charge whatever you like.
Nobody has to stay in a hotel. Nobody has to get on an airline flight. But you will find that there's days when the airline, when the plane is busy, the price goes up. When the plane is empty, the price goes down. The same happens right across the world in our industry, in all aspects of those businesses that use dynamic pricing. And what the dynamic pricing does is, for those people who might be more price sensitive, it provides days and dates when the rates are less than the average. And that's where the supply and demand plays to the advantage of some consumers.
Garrett.
Like Cormac, I understand what he's saying about what Tim is saying about dynamic pricing, and I understand that the less rooms that are available, the higher the price could go. The problem where his argument doesn't stack up is literally when a concert is announced, the prices jump up. It's the same with airlines when there's a flight to Paris for a rugby match or something like that, the prices shoot up straight away. It's not done through dynamic left. It's literally gone up 2-3-fold.
Why don't you legislate against it, Garrett?
A concert or a gig.
Why don't you legislate against it in some way?
It's difficult to do that. Okay. But what I'm saying is we want to help these businesses. We want to help in particular because through a difficult period. But you need the sector to be straight up and say, look, there are hotels who are fleecing people at certain times.
Well,
and that needs to be addressed.
I know that a lot of them have told us that they are on their knees. They're really trying to make ends meet from month to month. But we'll come back to this, I'm sure. Tim Fenn, CEO of the Irish Hotels Federation, and Garrett Ahern of Fine Gael, Míle buchas le beirt.